author who has a new book to help guide you with these steps to grasp your confidence and own your power. I love that.
Look around the room. You'll see that you're not so alone after all, and that unconfidence could look like any of us. Maybe your whole life you have been told that the best wins, but I'm telling you right now that the best known will win.
Hello, everyone. I am your host, Tara LaFon Gooch. We have had a lot of people say they were coming to this event today. So I would love to hear from you guys in the comments. One, where you're from. So what country, or if you're in the United States, what state you are calling from, what state you're watching from. What part of the world are you watching this episode from? Because we love hearing from people from all over the globe. So put those comments in. Also, as we are talking, again, this is an expert speaker panel. Let us know your favorite takeaways in the comments. So keep those comments flowing. And as comments come in, we will highlight you on the screen and we'll make this as open dialogue as we possibly can. Again, you're in a room today surrounded by professional speakers and real change makers from all over the globe. And by the way, I just want to point out we're all wearing blue. This was not coordinated at all. It was totally not coordinated, but I love it. So let's get into it. My name is Tara LaFon Gooch. I help thought leaders turn their story into strategy, visibility, and impact. But it's not just about me today. I am joined by expert leaders and change makers who also do the same. And we're going to do a roundtable discussion. So each speaker will introduce themselves and have a few minutes to go over who they are, who they serve, their topics, and why speaking is important to them. First up on the panel, Ido joins us from Israel. Ido, welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Tara. Hi, everyone.
Hello. Well, Ido, I would love to hear a little bit about you, who you serve, what results you provide your audiences as a speaker, and we'll start there. And then I also want to know, why did you get into speaking? Why do you love this?
Okay. First, thank you. And hello to everyone. For the question, I help leaders, teams, and decision makers to perform under extreme pressure. Using the tools, actually, that I gathered and deployed many years ago, let's say 32 years ago, it's a real time and a real life experience in operations across the world. And I've led the missions involving national security, diplomacy, crisis negotiations, and also personal trauma, and what lights me. I will share, of course, because this is important. It's what lights me is that into the turning point that I had into this purpose was that I knew that I'm good in chaos. In chaos, I have clarity. So it's not common, I understood, because I saw many others doing something else. And I speak because actually I lived through the situations. And just when you are a single person that can save lives and also took decisions, if you take a wrong one, people will die. So I just want to give this clarity to people and to make them understand that if you have this voice inside you, within you actually, so you can say to yourself, you are not alone.
Mm-hmm.
You're not alone, and you can lead through it, and even in the dark.
I love that. Wow, that's such a powerful mission. So you're taking your expertise as a former elite Israeli security professional. You help leaders, you help audiences perform under pressure in extreme circumstance. That's amazing because ultimately in business, a lot of uncertainty. And we need to know as leaders how to react in times of chaos and uncertainty. I love that, Ido. So powerful. Let's go ahead and go to Jim Davis. Jim, please introduce yourself, who you help, who you serve, and the results you provide, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Tara. Thank you for having me today. Happy Friday. I guess I should say happy Blue Friday to everyone. And so it's a pleasure to be here. I also operate in the area of leadership, and I try to help individuals not only be better leaders, but better humans. I've often said that I can talk about strategy and planning your time and managing and all of that, but sometimes we just have to be better humans. I think that's where it starts. And I really like to talk about what leadership actually is, that if you do leadership right, it does hit different, it does land different. And really leadership has the potential to change someone's life forever, whether that's professionally and also personally. And so I deal a lot with communicating better, just being healthier with resolving conflict, those kinds of things that we deal with every day. And I like to dispel the myths of what leadership is not, because that is a big deal as well. And really, if we can practice those things and walk on that solid ground of principle and just be better human beings, then we develop better cultures. And that's really what I try to help people do. But I've been involved in adult training and growing people all my adult life. I first saw myself doing this when I was 15, and I actually delivered my first talk in my dad's church when I was 15. And it lasted 11 minutes. And my knees were shaking, but I got through it. My talks last a lot longer now, but I just love leadership, and I just love the power of the spoken word.
I love that. That's amazing. What change are you trying to create, Jim, with your work?
Well, I think first and foremost, it does need to be internal. It does need to be with the individual. Sometimes people walk around and say, well, I wish our organization were better. I wish my boss were better. I wish this were better. And there's an old saying, if it is to be, it's up to me. And so I really try to help people to have that, shift in their thinking and a change in their heart. And I think that's where it starts, because change is tough. People like to hold on to what's comfortable, what they've always known or what they've always done. And it takes could take a long time in a process. So I really try to get people excited about being better, trying to pursue that process of a preferable future for them.
I love that. It's so powerful. Real change begins with self. I always say that. That's so perfect. I just want to take just a moment here before we go into Doug. We do have some viewers joining us. We've got Daniel Simon, my friend and colleague from Raleigh, North Carolina. Hey, Dan. We've got Brett. We've got Lonnie. Guys, don't forget to tell us where you are watching from. And Daniel has a special message for Ido, praying for you and your country, Ido. We're big supporters. That is fabulous. Well, Jim, thank you so much for contributing. And we will go to Doug Thompson. Doug, my friend, my storytelling extraordinaire speaker. Hey, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Sure, I'm the Doug Thompson everywhere because anybody could be Doug Thompson, So I want to strive for a little bit more than that. But I help strategy. So I'm a sales nerd. I've been a sales nerd my entire career. I've had decades of this things, and sales nerd being a solutions engineer. But what I really do is I create these captivating stories. So no demos that suck come from me. All right. So I'm past that. You've been in these demonstrations where ones and zeros of the whole conversation that goes on, and the customer, you lost the customer. I'm here to sort of change all that, to make demos where they're captivating, make them where you're actually in their closing deals. You get them to lean in. You'll be the one that gets remembered from those things. That's what I do on a daily basis. I've been doing this for decades. I spent 20 years at Microsoft, another 5 in another tech company here. And what I'm really trying to do now is give back. In being in tech, you work with a lot of very smart people. And what I found is that education and intelligence doesn't necessarily, lend well to connection and being able to connect with the customer and what they need. More importantly, being able to tell your story. What do you do? It's sort of like you're asking us to do here. What's us? Why do we speak? Why do we do these things? So I'm on a mission to help give these very smart people the skills to tell stories. Nobody teaches that anymore. It's not done in schools. Technology works against us. We learn to text or Slack or do these other things, but that's not a story. That's simply conveying information. So I want to sort of give you a connection with your story. And, I've been doing enough sales kickoffs and been asleep in the back of the room because there's nothing actionable I can take out of it. When I do a keynote at a sales kickoff, we're moving. We're hitting the phones that afternoon. We're so excited about the new skills we just learned. We're ready to go. So that's why I'm here. That's why I speak. I'm really trying to give back, as our previous to be Ido and Jim had said. It's my time to give back to those that haven't had that experience that I had and try to help make them the best that they can.
I love that. It starts with story, not with selling a product, right?
Nope.
People don't buy products, they buy from other people. And, I have found that when we incorporate storytelling into whatever service or product that we are selling, because if we're in business, we're selling something.
Mm-hmm.
It's a much higher conversion rate because there's a relatability factor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
everybody's got a what's in it for me. And if you can address that and you can show them how you can uniquely address that, it's hard to beat.
It's hard to beat. I love that. What got you into this, Doug? How did you start speaking and why does this light you up?
Oh, and being in corporations, here's presentations. And again, I speak with customers. I was in roles. I found out roles that I don't do well out of roles where I'm not in front of a customer. It's an internal type thing. I don't necessarily do well at that because I can't tell as many stories or, you get the death by meeting. I want to go out on the endpoint, see what the problems are out there that we can solve. We can't solve them all, but we can help with some of them that you've got out there. And how do we and then you watch the impact that you have. And that's sort of a reason, from the speaking perspective and why I want to give back to the other tech pros out there is I've seen people that I've mentored and from before and after, then I watch them do things with their unique skills because everybody's got unique skills. There's nobody else out there that can tell a story like me. I'm not trying to brag, but my story is going to be told differently than everybody else because I've got my own experiences and everything that God's given me has helped make that unique experience. He's created one me. My wife would say, thank goodness that there's only one me. But anyway, so try to give that voice, just give them the tools. And I see them do something that I could not do. That gives me such a great feeling. It's a little bit like a parent when you're watching a child grow up and they do something like that. It's just, I love that feeling. And that's why I get in. That's why I want to do this because I want to encourage that feeling. It's a drug for me.
I love that. And I'm so glad there's only one Doug Thompson.
The world's safer that way. Let's put it that way.
That's right. I just want to take just a moment to recognize the audience members here. We've got Omar from Arizona. He saw me on somebody's show years ago. Love that. Thank you so much for continuing to follow and support. And Lonnie is hey, Doug, you've got fans out there. Lonnie is a fan. Look at this.
Lonnie was the sort of the cat herder of the first book I co-authored with that. So we go back a ways from that.
Oh, I love that.
It's a pleasure working with her on that.
Your first of many books, my friend.
I can write a chapter.
I love that. And we've got my friend David Maldon here. He is praying for Ido and his country of Israel as well. And we have more Ecom, I believe. Ecom, hey everyone. Ecom, where are you from, my friend? Don't forget to write in the comments. All right. Well, thank you so much, Doug. That was fantastic. Let's go to Lori. Now, before I introduce Lori, I just want to say she is so unique. Descendant of a Japanese samurai warrior. How cool is that? Lori, welcome to the panel today.
Well, thank you for having me here, Tara. I love being in your community. And if you are a speaker out there, you might want to think about joining her community. It's awesome. So what I do, and actually my journey went from the jailhouse to the penthouse. I'm a Toastmaster, and when I went to the jailhouse, I literally told stories there. And I used voices, and they loved it. And so ever since then, I've been doing storytelling with Japanese puppets and Japanese stories. So I help audiences and teams elevate their businesses by bridging that gap between Japanese wisdom and today's world. And I do that through the Japanese principles of Ikigai, knowing your purpose in life, and the Kodo Bushido, which is courage, integrity, honesty, honor, courage, integrity, benevolence, respect, honesty, honor, and loyalty. And those 7 principles, the samurai did not deviate from that. And if they did, it would be the ultimate sacrifice, which is death. And the last one is Gambaru, and that's never to give up. Because as a traumatic brain injury survivor, 2005, 2007, I went through years of therapy, going from reading at a 7th grade level to writing a book, which not only did I write it, it was published by Tuttle Publishing. So that's what I love to do. And I love to help people on their journey, because it starts, as we all said, it starts on the inside. Because if you can't lead yourself internally, you can't help others.
Wow, so powerful. I love how your work bridges ancient Japanese wisdom, which is still so relevant today, but you bridge that ancient framework that's proven over thousands of years with modern day business principles, so that businesses that are modern day, they can scale the right way through values driven approach, right, Lori?
Yes, correct.
I love that. What got you into speaking, and why does this light you up?
Well, being a middle child, I never spoke. I never wanted to be heard. In fact, my teacher used to say, Lori's not going to get an A or B unless she speaks up, because she knows the answers. So I had to speak up. And then when I was doing network marketing, I was challenged to do a Clemmer an associate workshop. So I did that, and that was fine. I got the people in the room, and then they said, okay, now you will introduce Brian Clemmer, who was, monumental, larger than life. And I just about thought, oh no, what am I going to do here? So I went to Toastmasters. And after I did that, found that I had a voice and that my voice counted. And I've been with Toastmasters for over 15 years. I'm not currently there now, but I love Toastmasters. It helped me find my voice and what I love to do and what I love to speak about. So that's my story.
I love that. That's so inspiring. Let's highlight some of our friends who are joining us as well. We have Ecom, who is asking, how can I improve? I love this. Listen, we will get to this question, Ecom, so stay to the end, because I will answer, and we will answer questions just like this, because as a speaker, we are encouraged to improve our skills, not just our speaking skills, but our persuasive communication. So we will get to that question at the end, my friend. And Lonnie says, we're just kids with older faces. I think that is so cool and wise, right? Let's go to for Lonnie on that. And Lee says, sorry, I'm late. We'll listen backstage. No worries, Lee. We've got you, my friend. And this is recorded, so you can watch this at any time. I'm going to take a little segue here. There is a famous comedian. You guys have probably heard of him. Drop him in the comments as well if you think this is funny. Jerry Seinfeld once famously said, people would rather be in the casket than delivering the eulogy. Because guess what? There is such a thing as fear of public speaking. And actually, most of the world, upwards of 70% or more of people, are actually terrified of public speaking. So I think that might make us all a little crazy, but that's okay. I'm okay with that. But I want to hear from you guys. We're just going to do an open mic. I want to hear from you guys why this is something that you chose to do. Ido, go for it.
Okay. So, why I chose to speak, right? So it started when I was really young. We talked about the blue shirts. So we are five, and it's 5 players, and it's reminding me the basketball, right? I also wrote an article about this, and being the playmaker. So I noticed that being a playmaker, it's something that I really like to do, or even drove into it. Then it went forward to the army. In Israel, you are joining the army at the age of 18. You don't have a choice, actually, but you want to do it if you are in the average, scale of the citizens. So I joined the army, and in the Navy, I I knew already that I've led teams but in basketball and sport. But now in the army, when you are in the Navy, so I just already in the selections day, we have selections, not one day, just 3 days. And over there, I already saw that people are listening to me when I'm talking.
Yeah.
And I continued forward. So I became a team leader and then an officer. And when I led missions, we were a bit dangerous, let's say, and even life or death, let's say, missions. And when we had the situations of chaos, and I took the decisions, I saw my teammates doing what I ordered them, but not in an order, just calmly, and said, go there, do this. And they did it, but they did it in a way that they believed in me. So it made me also strong-minded that I have to do it more. So later on, I continued, and one after the army, 7 years after, right? After that, a young operator, when I was doing the same, but at the agencies, I can say it. It's okay, guys. No, I have a short retired, so it's fine. Uh, for me, it's fun at least. So when a junior operator came to me and said, your words, and I will not forget this, because this is the moment when I understood that it's not only the missions, it's not only life or death decisions or decision making 2 seconds, and if you don't take it, so no, it's he told me, you gave me strength, not only at work, which is not work, but it's a mission, or being in a unit that is really, but no, you gave me, he corrected me. I said, okay, I'm happy that you are feeling good about yourself here. No, I said, no, I'm feeling good at home. I'm my family after your talks,
I love
after
that.
talking to us. So that was the turning point for me. Maybe I have influence that makes good to people, and then I decided to speak.
I love that. That's so powerful. So you were speaking, it was from a place of leadership, and you realized that it had a transferable power, that when you spoke, other people were inspired and they were able to take that lesson home. They were able to take that to their jobs, to their work. I would love to hear it from anybody else as well. You know, again, we're talking about Jerry Seinfeld and his whole joke. You know, people would rather be in the casket than deliver the eulogy. Has anybody else here been afraid of public speaking?
Well, I'll jump in here for a minute, because actually I got to ask to speak at my best friend's do the eulogy at my best friend's dad's funeral.
What a coincidence!
Because he's not. Well, it's funny because he was like my second father. But you know, to the point here, it's much the same feeling. Is I can't remember a time. Although when I did my TED, I was actually introduced to fear again.
Yes.
But that was all internal to me. That I put that fear in myself.
Yeah.
To go do that, but I can relate, because I would talk to people and they would say about fear, and I said, well, I've been talking for over 20 years, and I didn't remember that feeling, and I got that feeling, and I remember, it's all put on myself. But I go for that one person. My goal when I get up and to speak is, if I can impact one person. For example, like the TED that I did, I got through, and I didn't think I did that well, because it wasn't the version that I played in my head. It was a totally different version. But there was a young gentleman came up afterwards, and he had taken like copious notes during the whole thing, and wanted to follow up and ask questions. So up in that time, I wasn't feeling real good about it till that one person came up. He got it. It impacted his life. And then, my vision is that from there, they will go impact other lives. That's sort of the bigger goal, is if I can give these people these confidence that they can tell their story, how many lives are they going to impact from that I would never have a chance to go do and see? So that's why I do it.
I love that. I love that. Anybody else want to pipe up? And by the way, you're right about that. There's something psychological that happens when we stand on the red dot. And I've heard this from other speakers as well. I myself personally thought, oh, my fear of public speaking is completely gone. And then I stood on that red dot, and it's like, what? Where am I? Oh my God, I'm a speaker. I have to do this. This is crazy. So I think you're right about that. And speaking of TEDx, Lori has done not one, but two.
Two, yes.
Yeah,
I'd love to share about that, because as a baby boomer, I grew up in the 60s, and was not a good time to be Japanese. So I was teased, bullied, and I just wanted to hide. And all my life, I just didn't. I had a brilliant brother and sister that were older and would, just kind of tease me. But then when I had to speak, I did it, and I found that I could do it. But then when I didn't have to, after the 5th grade, I went back to being quiet, until that time when I was challenged to introduce Brian Clemmer. Some of you may know him, but he passed away young. And I joined Toastmasters, and that also helped catapult my confidence, because after I spoke, people actually clapped, and I thought, wow, this is great. And I never looked back. I just love Toastmasters. I love speaking, and I love people to be encouraged and help them find their voice, and that they have a message that only they can deliver. Just like each one of us, we all have a unique message to give to the world. That's what I love to do. And I go, like I say, I went from the jailhouse to the penthouse, and as a Toastmaster, I visited the jailhouse, and I actually became part of their staff, volunteer staff, and helped the women find their voice, find their lives, and tell them that this is not the path that you want to continue on. So that's what I got to do.
And just for clarity, Lori was not in prison. Lori spoke at prisons, right? I just want to clarify. But I love what you say, from the jailhouse to the penthouse, because this is like so true. You went from speaking to women at prisons, helping them find their purpose, their impact, and their mission in life, but then literally going to the penthouse, because you're also going to be on Ritz-Carlton cruises.
Well, I was
as a speaker.
I was in their talent pool, and I just heard back yesterday that they're not going to go forward with Asia. So I'm going to continue to look for an opportunity to be a destination luxury cruise destination speaker, because I love that. I love the idea. I've been to Japan many times, and I'm going back again, and somehow I'm going to connect it all and go to Japan more often. I do not want to live there, because there's no place like the United States, but I think it's the best country in the world to visit right now. And the dollar's strong, and it's just a wonderful place. You can eat for $10 and have a very nice meal, whereas here you won't even get a McDonald's meal.
Yeah, so. You'll get a pancake, right? I love that. Jim, I would love to hear from you. So you said in your personal testimony that when you spoke at your father's church, the very first time, your knees were shaking. It was an 11-minute speech. You were ready to rush off that stage. So it sounds like you overcame a fear of public speaking. I would love to hear a little bit more about that, because this is what so many people need help with right now, Jim.
Yeah, no, and that could have been just first time jitters. I think the more that I was able to stand up, I became more comfortable with the whole idea. But when you really stop and think about it, I do believe that there is something powerful about the connectivity that you can have with, it's almost like having a conversation with a group of people. You know, where else can you get people in a room, you stand up in front of them, and you're able to really just use words. That's really what it comes down to. But having said that, I mean, you think about John Kennedy's speech, where he said, ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. You think about Martin Luther King Jr. when he stood up and the first 4 words were, I have a dream. You know, people can remember a lot of the Gettysburg Address, 7 years ago. They remember a lot of that. And all of those are just words that were delivered. For me, it's about the message. It's about trying to, as Doug was saying, aim for that one person or those people that could be open to that message and get inspired and motivated. So I think that helps me to not really think so much about the fact that, these are complete strangers. They don't know me from Adam. They may like me. They may not like me. I may not be everybody's cup of tea. For me, it's about the message, and if you have a strong message and if you articulate it well and you deliver it well, then it can land. And that's really what's helped me.
I love that. That's so powerful. Yeah, I tell this all the time because I'm trying to inspire people with this. I'm not trying to get pity from this, but this is a true story. First time I delivered a public speech, I cried in the bathroom before I went on stage. True story.
Oh.
True story. And it wasn't that long ago. So if I can do it, anybody can do it. And I believe that we have to take action. If you feel this is a fear of yours, it's totally normal. It doesn't mean it's unconquerable. I would lean into it, because if we face our fears and put in action, who knows what will happen? And I actually discovered it was a part of my purpose. And what if this is unlocking a part of your purpose too? So think about that as we continue to talk. And we've got some comments here, and I'll ask you guys a couple more questions. And we've got Nico. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Glad to be here. And then we have more people. So she said she's tried Toastmasters too. I love that. Keep putting in the comments, guys, what is resonating with our speakers today. And if you need help in this area, you've got a team here ready to help you go to the next level in your speaking career. Let me divert a little bit, because I do have some powerful questions that I want you guys to answer. Can you share a moment when your words made a lasting difference in someone else's life? So Doug kind of mentioned when he was doing his TEDx talk that there was a gentleman in the audience that had all of these notes. Has there been a transformative event where you delivered a keynote, maybe somebody after the keynote or even sometime later messaged you and reached back out to you and said, I implemented this, I tried this, and I haven't been the same since? Something like that. Anything, guys? Any experiences like that? Ido, go ahead.
Yeah, I was thinking about that because I have a lot of cases, but I remember when I was in Russia, it was at the time that, they had a lot of suicide attacks from the Chechens. I mean, now they are very good friends. I'm not going to go into these geopolitical things because I can talk for hours. But we had an incident that a suicide bomber exploded himself, and it was a chaos, of course. You know, I don't want people to be in these kinds of situations because it's really bad. But I had the opportunity to be with many kinds of events like this, let's say. So I remember the one time that we had the event. I mean, we had it already, and uh, nothing happened to my team. But when we had to go to the mission, I saw the faces. I mean, you know, I told you once when we spoke, just, you know, when I'm talking to people, I'm asking to turn the lights on, not off, and I'm not presenting. I'm talking because even if they ask to bring presentations, I just put the one and I'm just talking to the people and look at them. And I saw the fear. I saw the fear in their eyes. Of course, fear, it's a common thing that everybody have. I mean, we have the fear always, but it depends what you do with the fear. I mean, you can go and freeze, but you can go with the fear and be focused. So I saw it, and I wasn't sure that we can go to this mission. It was an important one. You know this place. I mean, I don't know if you know, but you know the complicated points. And I saw, and I said, uh, "Can I tell you something?" And I always talk in a very calm way in those situations. I can be loud, I can be funny, I can joke, and it can be, you know what? I have a lot of energy, but it's coming to a point that you need to do something very serious, and life or death is in. I asked. Before I asked, I said, "You trained?" Yes. "You trained especially for this?" Yes. "We had a case here, you had an event, right?" "Okay. It passed?" "Yes." "We've been there before?" "Yes." "So you are ready, and you have to trust yourself. And when you trust yourself, it means you trust me."
Ooh.
Just this sentence, really, and it turned the fear into action.
Ah.
And when we did this mission, it really went well. And you know, they came after that. You know, we are doing the debriefing, so we talk. You know, all the time. We analyze the situation, and then we talk freely, like putting everything on the table. And I will not forget this because you know a lot of things I will not forget also. So because there were points that I understood that people, as Jim said, and also Dagan and Lloyd, people, they're human beings. They need to hear that first someone is behind them. They're not alone. And even if they're not, even if they are alone, they have the power, the inner power to go through it.
I love that. That's so powerful. If you've done it once, you can do it again. And I think this applies to leadership. This applies to speaking. It applies to so many areas of your life. If you've done it once, you can do it again, but you have to take action. Doug,
Yep.
Lori, Jim, I would love to hear from you guys too. I have another question. So either we can either do that question or we can do a question of what advice you would give to somebody who's starting their speaking career. Which one do you guys want to tackle?
I'll take the other one. It's sort of hard from
Okay.
a life changing to follow Ito with the life changing thing. I gave you one of the best examples I've had. I mean, I've had some sales increase. I mean, some other things like that's far from what he was talking about. So I'll take the other. So just starting out in your speaking career, the most impactful speakers that I have seen and watched and heard are those that, again, are in touch with their story and can leverage that to make it more than words. It becomes a picture or a visual in that you can use words to create that picture, create a word picture and stuff. And there's the best ministers I've seen do a very good job of that. They bring things to life with the words and the inflection and all that. So get to know your own story first, because then that gives you confidence then that you can go tell other stories that go along with it. And in your life, there's stories all around you. Once you sort of understand your own stories, just the story of us showing all up in blue, and I go all in because I got blue ink on my fingers from my daughter. Your granddad. There's stories that all are, and I've got a blue, I don't know what's going on. I got a blue drinking glass. I don't know what's going on. But see, it's a story that comes in. There's opportunities for you to sort of build upon that, use that as a relation. I was doing a sales qualification we have yesterday for a product. And as I'm there, I was thinking, I said, look, I'm going to use the analogy of a magician, because the product we were talking about is sort of like the magician. We're on the back end of that. And the real work is actually, if you've ever watched the Masked Magician or whatever, the assistants are actually doing most of the work to make the magic happen. The magician is simply talking and, distracting you while the people in the back. So I use that analogy, and then nobody had heard that before, but it stuck with them. Now they have this picture in their head, which they'll remember. And then when you're going in to do a demonstration, or you're going in to do a talk, and maybe there's many talks, I want to be the one that they remember, because I've also attached a picture or a video in their brain that helps them remember what I said.
That's powerful. That's powerful. And it's so transformative too. Again, the power of stories. When you talk, Doug, it just makes me want to fly to Austin, Texas, sit around a bonfire, right? And all of us sit around a bonfire and we just share stories. It lights me up. It sounds so fun, and it's engaging. This is what people want. This is what audience wants, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I love that. I want to highlight our audience while we're talking about it. The first time I delivered a public speech, it was at a seminar with kids and their parents. I was fidgeting, but when I came to the stage, the faces of the kids lightened up. I delivered my speech, and in between, I had fun activities to make it fun. Make it fun. Make it engaging. It's such a good way to get out of our own heads and just to help other people, right? So who else wants to go? Either what has been a transformative moment from a speech that you've had from an audience member, or Jim and Lori, what advice would you give to somebody starting their speaking career?
Well, I can hit on the first one a little bit. I deal with a lot of blue collar supervisors, and when they think about training, their eyes go in the back of their heads, because so often a lot of what they've been presented is just someone reading PowerPoints. And I do have people from time to time. One recently walked up and he didn't have to say it. He said, I thought this was going to be boring, but it wasn't. And so that was for like one of the best compliments that I could receive, because I understand exactly what he's talking about. And so I agree with Doug. There's a lot that you can do to make it come alive. But one of the things that I learned early on and really had to embrace is to not try to be someone that you're not. That you do have to be your authentic person. I mean, we have 5 screens. All 5 of us are different, and we're supposed to be. That we are unique people. We are individuals, and everybody has a story to tell. My story is different than your story, but someone wants to hear my story and someone wants to hear your story. And so early on, maybe I would try to emulate someone, try to do voice inflection like someone else. I've got to be this, I've got to be that. But I just learned that you just have to be yourself, because people don't like pretense. And if you come across as inauthentic or fake or showy, and all sizzle and no steak, then you're really defeating your purpose. So I just try to be myself. And for the most part, even with my humor, you know, some people take it, some people leave it, but that's okay. I'm just going to be myself. So,
You had some
be
Texas
who
in
you
there.
are, you know.
Doug loved that sizzle steak analogy, I think.
Yeah, and I got a whole story about that.
I'm sure.
Right. I tried to be somebody else at a training once for like a week. I tried to be somebody more of Jim style. I call it the professor. That, you know, got the elbow patches and the tie and very measured in their delivery. And I tried to be that. Nobody here would be surprised that I failed horribly at that. And so I came back, was myself. There was activity and stuff went on, and the guy that was running said, I waited for that guy to show up all week because I knew it was you. That was you. And my wife, who's my best coach I had, said, you can only be you. You know, you can't be somebody else. Now, you can take bits and pieces from other people. If it works, great.
Sure.
Incorporate. If it doesn't, no loss. It's not you. But as Jim hit a part, and that's part of knowing your story, is knowing your style as well.
That's right. When I first started, somebody told me I had to wear glittery sequined everything. And I said, oh, Lord, I'm not a glittery sequin kind of girl. I don't think so. That's not going to work for me. Lori, what is the best advice you could give to somebody starting their speaking career?
Well, first, I would say listen, be a good listener. And that's what I learned as growing up, a middle child. You don't speak, you listen. So in doing that, I actually interceded in 3 suicides.
Wow.
They would tell me their story, and then I would say, okay, each person was a little different. One person, I just told her, you call me when you get home. I said, don't go through this. And I talked to her about all the, what her life was about and what her life, you know, why it's important and why everybody is important. And so by doing that, I just picked up these skills. And then when I was forced in it and joined Toastmasters, I had to do it. But I would just say, you know, just go with your message. What is your unique message? And everybody has a story to tell. We're all individuals. And I just want to tell people, just do it because the world needs you. And when I do storytelling, I love that. I think almost most because I get to be funny, silly. I speak Japanese. I throw Japanese words in there and I bring humor into it. And I laugh. And especially if I make a mistake, I laugh and I say, oh, you know, joran desu, meaning just a joke. So anyway, that's what I would tell people is just to find your authentic voice and just go practice with people and just find out what resonates and how you can help. And that's the ultimate goal. How can you help others by sharing your story?
There's a common thread and theme here. Authenticity wins. Don't copy other people. Don't try to be like other speakers. Just try to be the best version of yourself. Yes, Ido.
I just one thing to Doug. You can copy if it's your profession, right. Because I can tell you, copying it's not that difficult to do.
No.
And so, but we're not going to. Maybe after we will talk about it because it's a professional issue. But yeah, you can copy, and it's connected to other things. But about speaking, I just want to say first that if you really want to speak and make an impact, not with titles or, who are you, what you did, or everybody has his own, story, but you have to talk to people if you want to do it in a way that they will get some messages from you to learn and to understand. You need to speak in a way, not for motivation, just, you need to speak like someone's life depends on it. Like you have to be, you have not for the applause, not for the, just speak the truth, like the life depends on it, and they will see it. And from where I got this, not from, I was speaking to organizations, mainly in Europe, but also in the US. Law enforcement like Europol, Interpol. And I think I told you once when I came, it was a conference, so a 3 days conference, and I always was the last one to be at that 3 days. And, it made me a little bit, why I'm not the first and I can go, because I'm a guest, I'm not from the EU. I said, guys, listen, why I cannot be the first day, I will do the first day, but then let me go. But they said, but when you will go, and they knew me because I do jokes, right? I talk to the people, I turn the light on, I talk to someone, I make a joke on myself, by the way, which is fun for me. But I noticed that I'm lost because my story is real, and it comes from the experience, and that's the reason. And
That's right.
when I was realizing that it's very important, it was during the last year when I voluntarily went to pre-military academies in Israel. We have it, small country, but we do have it. And I was there to give presentation about a unit. And I didn't even think to talk about life. Let's talk about our lives and what will be the consequences in 20 years, maybe, and what this work can do for you. I mean, not in a good way, but also in a good way. I didn't think that they will listen. 18 years old, and they were into it, and they didn't even ask one question about any mission, only what is going on with you within when you're doing all those things and what happens in 20 years. It was very interesting for them, and I really, really liked it.
I
Because
love
this
that.
generation, we thought that they were just applications, and Instagram and whatever they are. But no, they really understand the life. It's very important.
Well, you bring up a really good point. And, we talked about not trying to copy somebody else, but we can copy frameworks that work. But one thing we can't copy is a story. It's lived experience, right? And this is why going back to, the power of storytelling is so important in speaking, and to really nail a framework for storytelling, which Doug Thompson, by the way, has an amazing framework for storytelling. When you nail that framework, you're not trying to copy somebody else. You're not trying to borrow somebody else's message. You're simply putting your story, your lived experience into a presentation that reaches the minds and hearts of the audience. And I think that is so important. So I've noticed a couple common threads. Even though we're completely different speakers, we all have completely different speaking topics, experiences. We live in different places and certainly different stories. Authenticity, human connection, lived experience, right? These are some of the things that we've talked about, and actually owning that narrative from your story with authenticity. So I would absolutely love, again, anybody in the comments, you're welcome to chime in. We are happy to give you some feedback. We did have a question that came up a little earlier ago, and I promised Ecom I would get back to his question. How can we improve our persuasion skills? I would actually like to hear specifically from Doug. Sorry to put you on the hot seat, Doug, but you're the sales expert guru here.
I knew that one was coming to me, and I was ready for it.
I know. Sorry about that, my friend. I can't help myself.
No, it's a great question.
Yeah.
And I think if you turn that around, okay, what do I mean by that? And Lori hit upon it earlier, listening. So when I'm out doing a sales thing, and I will do a lot of listening to hear what they're telling me, because they'll tell you what's in it for me, because that's really what you're going to have. So if you want to be persuasive, you have to address that what's in it for me, regardless of what it is. And they'll tell you that if you listen, and if you ask more questions, sometimes they won't do it on the surface. Dig a little bit deeper, ask these questions. And sometimes if you're going like before an audience, do a little industry, find out what you know about it. ChatGPT is great for doing some research to help you scale, to go on and find out what's a day. And this is part of my framework that I start with. What's a day in their life look like? Ooh. Right. And if I use the language that they use, for example, like if I'm talking to an education customer, which I talk to a lot of them, even though the underlying problem or situation they have is very much the same as I would have at a big corporation, they don't use the same words. Their driving factor is student outcome. How can I tie something to that? So knowing what is important to them, it's better if you can get them to tell you that. Then you simply tell the story, tie in, and help them picture themselves in that situation using whatever else you're trying to persuade them to do. Again, you're taking them on the journey. They're the hero. You're helping make them the hero. It's a no-brainer after that because they've persuaded themselves by simply you helping them along with the journey with the story.
That's powerful. That's one of the reasons why. So I own a branding agency. Most people know that. It's one of the reasons why I started serving speakers. Someone that I'm friends with, he's a professional speaker. He told me once, he said, I'm tired of piecemealing my brand everywhere and getting no congruency. It was a light bulb that went off. And I said, what if it was in one place and not 100 places? Makes sense, but you have to listen first and you have to know that pain point, and it's an active listening. Do way more listening than you do talking, and audit yourself, because we are speakers. We like to talk. It's no surprise. It's no shock. I have a podcast. We have a podcast. Doug has a podcast. Lori has a podcast. Ido's starting. Like, we like podcasting. We like talking. But if you do more listening and do an honest audit of yourself, am I talking more than listening? That is a good indication of your effectiveness, I think. What do you think, Doug? Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. I play a little game with myself. Does the customer talk more than I do?
Ooh, yeah.
Right. And so I'm sort of like playing this back and forth. And because that, again, you got 2 ears to listen, 1 mouth to talk. You should use them in that appropriate portions. I heard that somewhere.
That's good.
So once I learned to do it, again, a lot of the failures I see in a lot of young is they're reading this sales script or whatever. They're going to get their word in. No matter what the other person wants or hears or listens, they're talked to as opposed to talked with. And that's the way it should be. And it's much like to somebody that doesn't really think they're a good speaker. How do you talk to your group of friends? How are you having a conversation with them? Really no different. You may not know these people, but if you sort of talk, hopefully you're talking nicely to your friends, or you probably don't have many of them. But if you do have that conversation, that gives you confidence. I can talk. I can hold a conversation with my friends and get a point across and persuade them and do these other things. What am I doing differently there than what I think I would be doing on this other thing? Am I using a script or am I using something else? I'd be horrible at the news because I can't read a teleprompter if my life depended on it. I can't process that. So, how do you go in and tell your story and do that? But again, to Tara's point, listen more than what you talk. And again, it's not about you, it's about them.
Absolutely. Lori and Jim, anything to add to that before we wrap up?
I would echo that. And really when we talk about persuasion, I mean, it's kind of like the first cousin to motivation. And if we really stop and think about what is motivation, what motivates people, I do think that that's intrinsic. So what Doug is talking about is when you place them in their own story and they see the outcome, they can imagine that. I think he's right that that it sells itself. But when you really stop and think about what is motivation, motivation is the reasons that people have to do something. And so what you're trying to do, if I can understand what he's saying correctly, is you want to give them that reason to make that decision. And if you make it powerful enough and they make that decision almost on their own, you don't have to go by a sales script, which I have had to do in the past. And it's agonizing because you are doing the talking. They have a glazed look on their face. They're not listening. And so the whole thing is backwards. So I think it is about asking those good questions and hearing from them and tapping into that motivation.
And sometimes it's getting them to understand that by not making a decision, by not changing, that's a choice. And the outcome from that could be negative. Sometimes, if I need to change, a lot of people I work with, they're sort of, change is hard. Change for humans are hard. I get it.
Yes.
But there's a cost if you don't change. And Jim, in your role of work as well, some people that don't change, there's a big risk to that.
Absolutely,
so trying to get
100%.
them to even get in touch with that, then that's powerful too.
Yep.
What is the
absolutely.
cost of inaction? We talk about ROI all the time and we put a glorification on it. And yes, we absolutely. But what is the cost of inactivity? This is something that I don't think we talk about enough, right? So let's keep talking about this, because each one of us has a conversation, has a story, has a speech that gives an understanding to the audience of what the cost of inaction is. And I think this is really important. So Lori, any last thoughts, my friend?
Well, one of my quotes is, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. And so
yeah,
that's what I think of, is that you need to listen. And sometimes I have actually had to say, may I speak? Because people kind of talk over me sometimes. But inaction can be good because you're sorting your things out. But by not acting, what is being lost? Whose lives are you not impacting? How are you being effective by your inactivity? And I have actually the opposite way. I mean, because of being slightly ADD, I go too much overboard and I do too many activities. That was my MO, and that was my mom's MO. If you get frustrated, you just do more. And so that's what I do sometimes. So then sometimes I have to pull myself back. But you have to know your own body, your own rhythm, and what works for you.
I love that. And Lonnie says vulnerability equals value only every time. That's right. And Daniel says authenticity and vulnerability are the key to connection and relatability. Couldn't agree more. Guys, this was an amazing session. Thank you so much for being on this expert speaker panel today. Join our community. Talk your way to the top, because I believe lone wolves eat alone and die alone. Why do that? Why not have a community to support you in your journey so that you can achieve these big goals and dreams that you have, right? But most importantly, above everything else, I want you to hire these speakers for your next event. Why? Because they're transformational people. We know that motivation lasts for about 5 seconds. This is not what we are about. We're not motivational speakers. We're transformational speakers and impact makers that deliver a return on your investment, but also help you understand what the cost of inaction is by not implementing the strategies, methodologies, and steps that we teach in our speeches. So hire Ido, hire Jim Davis, Doug Thompson, and Lori for your next event or conference. And connect with these speakers online as well. Follow their journey, support their content. A lot of us have podcasts that we produce and other things that we would love for you to follow more deeply. So thank you so much for everyone who tuned into this episode today. And we will see you on the next one. Do you guys want to do this again?
Yes.
Anytime. What color are we wearing next time? We'll coordinate.
We want to do this again. I love that. We had a big turnout too. Lots of people commenting and loving this. So thank you guys for tuning in today. We will see you on the next time.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, all.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.